of the Newman City Council and Redevelopment Agency of January 8th, 2008. Please stand for the pledge and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads. Lord, give us the wisdom and the knowledge to make some intelligent decisions for the people of Newman. They definitely deserve it. Amen.
Thank you, Ted. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Caden?
Present.
Kelly?
Present.
Greenclough?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Martino?
Present.
Mayor Panazia?
Present. Sounds like we got our speakers working. I like that. I can hear myself. Sounds good out there? Declaration of conflicts of interest. Seeing none this evening. Ceremonial matters. We have a badge pinning this evening for Robert Alcantar.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. It does give me great pleasure to introduce to you our newest officer. Please step forward, Robert Bobby Alcantar. You may remember Bobby from October of 2007, in which we swore him in as a reserve officer with Newman Police Department. And now he's stepping up to fill the current vacancy we have in our department as a regular full sworn officer. Again, let me just tell you a little bit about Bobby so I can introduce him to you and to the community. He was born in Hayward, California. He grew up in the Hayward, Manteca, Salida areas. Graduated from Davis High School in Modesto in 1993. He played varsity football and baseball. After high school, he started attending MJC in business administration. He also helped out at his family-owned business and later went to work for the City of Tracy in the Public Works Department in the Water Department, and he's been there for 9 years. As I said previously, he was sworn in October as a reserve police officer. And at that time, he told me he had two goals. His personal goal was to complete his AA degree, which he completed in December of 2007. So I congratulate Bobby on that. And then he said he had a professional goal, and that was to become a full-time police officer with Newman Police Department. And we had a fantastic discussion along those lines, and here he is tonight. Bobby is married to Jennifer, his wife of 5.5 years. They have one child, Devin, who's 3.5 years old. And Bobby likes to coach youth football, and he also participates in an activity called mixed martial arts, which involves kickboxing, regular boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. And he'd like to put on a demonstration for us tonight.
And you need a council member to volunteer, right? Is that
So, ladies and gentlemen, it does give me great pleasure to introduce our newest officer, Robert Bobby Alcantar. Hey, Mayor, with your permission, I'll administer the oath of office? Or?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Robert, I'll ask you to raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Robert Alcantar,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will
that I will
bear true faith and allegiance
bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
that I will
that I will
well and faithfully
well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I
upon which I
am about to enter.
am about to enter.
Congratulations, sir. Bobby, as you know, taking the oath of office is a solemn occasion, and you just gave your oath in front of God, your community, and your family that you will not only bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution, but you'll protect it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I just want to take 1 second to remind you and to remind everybody that right now in foreign countries, there are people sitting on rocks and caves plotting to overthrow our form of government and our way of life. So keep in mind that this is a solemn vow that you will step in harm's way if needed in order to protect the Constitution and all the laws which flow forth. Okay? Thank you. Okay, and Bobby, who would you like to have come forward and pin your badge on? Jennifer? Feel free to.
Jennifer, there's a bonus if you get blood.
Yeah. Otherwise, no blood, no foul.
Could I ask a quick question? What did he play in baseball, by the way?
When I play baseball, first base.
First base, we can use you. Sign this young man up, please.
Yeah, no.
No, whatever he tells you.
That is a standard police department question now. What position do you play?
Yeah.
And Robert, if you will, allow you to say a few words.
I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. It's an honor, and I'm excited. I can't wait, and I'm glad that everybody's giving me the opportunity, Chief and fellow co-workers. They've welcomed me with open arms, and I'm excited. And this is like, I feel like home, and I'm excited. So thank you.
Great.
Welcome.
Congratulations. We can pay you more than he can.
And Mayor, if I may, just real quickly, whenever we have the badge pinning swearing in ceremony, there's always cake, punch that we have as a little reception. And there's a person in my department that I would like to recognize, Elaine Collison, who's sitting in the back there. I made sure she's in our room tonight. And I'd like to publicly thank Elaine because she sets out all up to make it special when we bring a new officer into the police department and welcome them into our family. So Elaine, thank you so much.
Thank you, Elaine.
Okay. Thank you.
She also
Thank you,
remembers
Chief.
everybody's birthday, too.
Yes, exactly right.
Okay.
It's sure nice to have our PD up to full force again. That's wonderful. Great. Items from the public, non-agenda items. If anybody has anything that is not on the posted agenda, now would be the time to bring it before us. Just come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, my name is Vicki Felber. I live at 1120 R Street in Newman. I live across from the library field. It was a parcel that was purchased by my father in 1989 and was subdivided by the city into 3 lots. My mother lives on the corner, and I live in the middle, and my son Sean and his wife Samantha, who are sitting by me, are building on the 3rd lot. When my father purchased the lot, he had a letter from Harder Birch, or Birch, I'm not exactly sure, I can't read his writing, but from what I understand from Judy Silber, who used to work at the city for over 25 years, he was a planner at the time in the late 90s. It was before the time when we had a full-time planner. He had been retired from the county, lived in Copperopolis, and came so many days a week. I'm not sure. Anyway, he had typed up a paper and signed it that in the future, when these lots were built upon, that we would not have to pay any park fees. And when my mother built her house, she didn't pay any fees, and when we built ours were waived also. And now that my son is trying to build his house, we've been having a little trouble with that, and we've been told that there's no documentation that we didn't have to pay the fees. So I have a packet for each one of you. I'll just tell you before I pass it out. The first page is the letter that my father had kept in the file. The second page is the receipt showing the fees that my mother paid, and there's no park fee there. The next page is the fees showing what I paid, and there's no park fee there. And then I have a letter from the city of Newman, and it shows all the different fees, and under parks it says waived for this project as required in sale of property. So I just wanted to pass out one of these.
This is from Bob Borchard, Vicki?
No, Harder Birch was
Oh,
the
okay.
name. Or Birch, I'm not sure, like I
Oh, okay.
said.
We think it was before Bob Brocher, the way it
Yes, I think
sounds,
so.
I guess.
James
huh?
Holden was the
Thank you.
city manager at the time, I believe.
Do you remember this guy, Ernie? Harder
His name was Harder Brew.
Brew?
Brew.
Okay.
It's pronounced Brew.
Brew?
Even though it's B-R-U-C-H.
Even as a CH?
Yeah, he was a county employee, retired.
So I'm just asking that my son can have his fees waived also. There are no more lots. This is the end of it. And I would just like to have his fees waived as my mother's were and ours were. And that's, I guess my father could see ahead because this is why he had the letter signed by him. So anyway, and I'd like to, they're getting ready to start, so I just didn't want anything holding up their process.
Michael, how much are those fees?
I believe they're approximately $4,000.
And so I'd just like to thank you for reading that, and I know you can't act on it tonight, but, you know, if you could get back to my
We'll
son.
definitely have staff
Okay.
go over this, because I think they were missing some of these. And I had got some information from Stephanie, but I don't think, some of these weren't there, so.
Okay.
So that we'll definitely look into it, right, Michael?
You continue working with Michael
Yes.
on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
If it can't get resolved at the staff level, we will bring it to the council at their next, agendize it for the next meeting.
Okay.
So they can take an action.
okay.
Okay.
One of the things we were concerned about is the fact that it might hold up the building progress.
Right.
Is there
Yeah.
any reason for that to happen, that it would impede their progress? Or is it
No,
that-
these fees are not paid until final inspection. So you should be able to get a building permit, and then these fees are paid at final inspection. Prior to you receiving occupancy of the unit, you would pay most of the impact fees don't come until final
Okay.
occupancy. We have some connection stuff you pay up front, the building permit and the connections, but the impact fees don't come till the final certificate of occupancy
Okay.
is getting ready to be issued.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know if you had any questions of,
I just want to say that, like, the way our loan is worked out, we have to have like a certain amount of money because we're getting the land from family. We don't have, I guess, a big enough investment, so we may, which I'm still working on, we may have to pay the whole fees up front in order to meet the bank's requirements of having enough money invested for the loan. So that was why we kind of.
At what point? Is this what you're talking about, your dad?
I don't think it's a huge
Yes.
deal. I mean, this week.
Yeah, this down here was different. There
I mean, by
was
the
already a
next
sewer
meeting, I guess it's
connection
fine.
on.
I'm sure we'll get it sorted out before the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks, so,
And I'm
yeah.
probably still working to try to work
We
on
were
it so
talking
we can
about
get
the
it.
park, and that's
Get it going, but that was the deal with that.
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Is there any other non-agenda items?
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Leroy McDonald here, resident of Newman. Just wanted to take this opportunity to wish all of you a happy New Year's. And basically take this opportunity to, and I was glad to see that Supervisor DeMartini was here to sort of, I guess, touch on the basis. I was really saddened to hear of the attack on Supervisor Martini. And basically, reading the newspapers and some of the things that might have came out in reference to Supervisor Martini and the West Park project. Yes, I am a consultant for West Park, and I just wanted to say how, terrible I feel about it, but I wanted to sort of amplify on that I really, truly believe. I don't know if it's coming from Supervisor Martini or it's just the newspapers, that the credibility of Jerry Camillus and Mike Lynch being able to sit down and speak with them as a consultant, they seem to be very credible people. And I think that there's been some misinterpretation in reference to Jerry being some sort of person that has this attack on Supervisor DeMartini. I just want to just say that, in speaking with these guys, they seem to be very credible men. We may have differences in terms of the West Park project, but, just speaking with them, and both of them seem to be very Christian people like myself, that basically they seem to be very credible. And I'm just hoping that, and wanted to just sort of lay some groundwork, that I don't think that anyone that is related to the West Park project has anything to do with attack on DeMartini. We may not agree in reference to some of the things that are taking place with the project, but I think all in all that a lot of this stuff is pulled out of proportion, and I'm really sorry to hear that on you. And I pray that, whatever this is, that it get behind us and to where we can move on and, and grow as a community. And God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other non-agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to consent calendar. Item A, waive all readings of ordinances and resolutions except by title. B, approval of warrants, and C, approval of minutes of the December 11th, 2007 regular meeting.
I'd move to approve.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Public hearings, we have one this evening. Adopt resolution number 2008, next to number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4. Chief, just one comment.
Sure.
We don't have a color printer, I guess, huh? I mean, it's not even worth printing out these pictures on the paper because you can't even make them out, but,
Duly noted.
okay.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, this is an abatement nuisance on 3 separate properties. The first property is 656 Mount Rushmore, and this is a situation of tall, dry grass, weeds throughout the front yard, and also 668 Mount Rushmore, and this is tall grass and weeds throughout the front and backyard property. Both these properties are vacant. Assuming foreclosure, they're abandoned. We've tried to make contact through written correspondence. We've received no response whatsoever, and we would like to move forward at this time to abate the situation. The third property is located at 2011 Yosemite Park Drive. This is a occupied residence. We've made personal contact as well as mailed out the required notice. The code enforcement officer, Edgar Lopez, has received what I would characterize as empty promises to abate the situation. Of all the items that you see in front of you, the only item that's been removed thus far is the couch. Everything else remains there, and it's creating a blighted condition for the neighborhood. And at this point, we'd like to move forward with the abatement process. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Chief, on the occupied property, when was the first notice of abatement sent out? I'm sure it's in the packet, and I'm sorry it's buried back here in the pictures.
Let me
Yeah, here it is.
see if it's attached. December 11th.
December 11th.
Yes.
Further questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anybody like to comment on these 3 addresses? See no one, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Bring it back to the council for some direction.
I'd move to adopt resolution number 2008, next to number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to regular business, item 8, presentation by Doug Sweetland regarding the benefits of an enterprise zone.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Doug Sweetland with the Alliance, Modesto. Actually here to talk with you about one of my favorite topics, and I'm really glad that we are now at the point where I can come down and talk with the city regarding the opportunities of expanding the enterprise zone to include the business community within the city of Newman. Michael, do they have copies?
Yes.
Okay, good. There are 2 copies that I provided to you this evening that basically I could probably sit down and just let you read this one, because it essentially is a complete overview of the enterprise zone program, both from the standpoint of the history relative to Stanislaus County and then the program itself as administered through the state of California. The one thing I want to clear up right away, Zone 40, we've heard a lot of different things like Area 51 and the Twilight Zone, but Zone 40 was used as a marketing, part of our marketing of the zone, because technically we were the 40th enterprise zone to be approved within the state of California back in November of 2005. So we adopted Zone 40, and we've used that as far as our documents are concerned. Just a very brief history on this. For some reason, from the inception of the enterprise zone program within the state of California, going back to actually 1984, through 1997, 39 of the 42 zones that had originally been approved were enacted. There were 3 remaining zones. Of the 8 counties in the San Joaquin Valley, Stanislaus County was the only one that did not have an enterprise zone somewhere within the county. And this predates my coming to the county, so I can't tell you why that happened. I've asked. But suffice it to say, in 2004, the governor, recognizing the need to provide the enterprise zone into areas that could use the business benefits that are afforded through the zone, opened up a competitive process for the remaining 3 zones. We applied, and we were successful to get Zone 40. That was effective as of November 16, 2005. So we have just completed our 2nd year as far as the enterprise zone itself is concerned. Now, when we went for the initial zone, we actually had to come out and talk with each one of the cities as to why they initially were not included within the boundary of the zone. It effectively included Turlock, Ceres, and Modesto, and parts of the unincorporated area of the county. The zone essentially developed itself. It drew itself based on criteria that was put forward by the state based on census tract data. But once we were able to establish our initial zone, then we were in a position to begin expanding that zone up to 15% of the total acreage of the initial zone. Now, the initial zone was 67,000 acres, and at the time we were approved, it was one of the largest in the state of California. Several zones around the state are 5,000 acres, maybe 10,000. We had 67,000. A lot of that area encompasses the west side of the county up to the river, and that's one census tract. But we were able to include that area. What that provided us was the opportunity to expand the zone by 15% or an additional 10,000 acres, which we have been doing. In the last year, we've included areas within Oakdale, Patterson, Riverbank, Houston, and then additional areas within Modesto, Ceres, and Turlock. We have talked with and had a similar presentation with the city of Waterford, and I'm really pleased to be out here this evening, the opportunity to talk with you relative to what this zone means and the benefits that it can bring to the business community. The expansion process is relatively easy, much easier than our initial 20-month-long process to get the initial zone, and that's what it took. Our first expansion took about a year. Our subsequent expansions have taken the matter of months. And to the extent that the folks at Housing and Community Development in Sacramento really don't like to see me coming. And they admitted that at one point. Effectively, going through an initial process, if you elect to do so, which I would encourage you to do, and submit it to the state following certain resolutions both by yourselves and by the Board of Supervisors, excuse me, once received by HCD, Housing and Community Development, they are obligated within 30 days to give us a response. And in the last expansion that we had, they actually did that and made the zone effective 30 days after receipt. Once it's effective, at that point then your business community, your businesses within the city, primarily commercial and industrial, can then begin taking advantage of the benefits of the zone with that one effective date. Now, we've had the zone for 2 years. There's a 15-year period of the zone, so we have 13 years left. And so, again, the clock is running on this, and that's why we're encouraging all the cities. We have 7. We want to have all 9 in the zone. Encouraging the cities to move forward, go through the process, and in our office, my office, will work with city staff to put the application together that would be reviewed locally or within the county, and then submitted to the state. And we've actually developed almost a template that is pretty easy to put together, and certainly one that was well received by the state of California when we've submitted our expansions. They look at it now and they know exactly what format it's going to be in, and they've had absolutely no problem with it. So essentially it's a matter of identifying the area. Michael and I have actually already looked at the area that would be included within the zone, putting that information together in the template form that we have, a resolution from the council. That would then go to the Board of Supervisors for a resolution from the board and then submitted to the state. So again, it's a process. The benefits are tremendous. In fact, I redid one of the major benefits on the hiring tax credit today. I redid the numbers on it because it's all predicated on the minimum wage, which went up effective January 1. And for a firm that employs an eligible person, and on this form on the back side, there are 13 eligibility criteria for the hiring tax credit, which we found to be the most significant tax credit that's available through the program. They only have to meet one of these criteria. And we do all of the vouchering in our office. So we, if a business is unable to qualify an employee under one of the criteria, we'll continue to look for one of the other criteria that they can qualify them for. But to use as an example, as of January 1, if an employee is vouchered for a company and they stay with that company for 5 years, it's $37,000 in tax benefits for that one employee over a 5-year period. And then you can do the math on any portion of that depending on the length of time that employee is with the company. So it is a tremendous benefit to each and every business, and that's any business that's located within the zone. So as we draw the boundaries of the zone area, it's all of the addresses that are within that boundary. So, and it's all predicated on address. So again, I don't want to get too much in depth this evening because there's a lot of technicalities in it, but suffice it to say, between the hiring tax credit and the equipment, sales and use tax credit for equipment, primarily for industrial or processing type equipment or computers, it provides a significant tax credit benefit back to the business community. So that's why I'm here this evening, provide this information. These are the 2 primary documents that we have. I think they go quite a ways in answering all the questions. And again, this one I have not yet had an opportunity to update the information on the hiring tax credit. Just thought about that today, that whoops, we've got to get that done because the minimum wage has gone up. And there's an explanation in there of why the minimum wage, how that fits into the criteria. But I guess the main thing this evening is to be here to, after my rambling, to answer any questions you might have or anything regarding process or benefits of anything of that nature.
Doug, I've got 2 questions for you. The tax benefits are state tax benefits?
They're state tax benefits, yes. If any tax, and they're tax credits. So as a business, if you put in for vouchering for an eligible employee for the hiring tax credit, or you're going to claim the sales or use tax credit for the purchase of equipment in a business or computer equipment, you take that information, that documentation, that is then attached to your filing with your income tax with the state of California, at which time the credit is taken off the liability, the tax liability that you might have. But it's done at the time you do your filing with the state with your income tax filing.
The second question is the boundaries, does it extend out to the rural areas, or are you talking exclusively here in the city?
At this point, it would exclusively be within the commercial and industrial zoning with the city, primarily within the city. there's some other issues that we had to kind of go to war with on housing and community development based on the ability to move from one industrial area to another industrial area, either through residential or ag land. And we went to battle on that one for a few months to get through part of that on one of our expansions. But primarily what we're looking at is industrial and commercial property, essentially within the boundaries of a jurisdiction. That's our goal at this point.
We've identified some area that's also within our sphere of influence,
Right.
but not yet annexed into our community, and Doug and I have talked about including that as
Yeah.
part of it. But I don't believe someone like Stewart and Jasper right now would qualify under ours, because we're not proposing to extend that out to that area at this particular time.
Yeah.
If the county at some point in time wanted to seek that through the alliance, that would be under their jurisdiction.
Is the east side that way, including the rural area? You said there's 67,000 acres.
Well, the reason that there's that much acreage, again, on the west side of the county, is the fact that it was, with the initial zone, it was one census tract. And the data in that census tract was an unemployment rate that was 3 points or higher than the state average, and a median family income of 4 that 80% or lower than the state average, and had as a part somewhere within that census tract commercial or industrial property. Those are the three criteria. And when we began to put the boundaries together, we found out that all of that property, again, on the west side of the zone itself within the county, ended up being one census tract.
What would it take to get the rural area involved? Is that a decision of the county board of supervisors?
That would be part of it, yes. The other factor is that we had about, actually, specifically, 10,126 acres that we could use for expansion. We have at this stage approximately 2,500 acres in reserve. And one of the things that we're trying to do is to avoid using acreage to get from one part of the existing zone to another part of the existing zone. I'll use this as an example. Patterson does have the enterprise zone that encompasses part of their, both their commercial and industrial property. You can move from one part of the zone to another, and let's use Highway 33 as an example. But if you use that highway as a public conveyance to get to Newman, you have to include the equivalent acreage that that highway encompasses. So if it's 8 miles, here's the formula, it's 8 miles times 150, the width of the road, and whatever that equates to in acreage, and then that has to be used as part of your additional acreage. So that's, we're having the same struggle in Waterford and getting there without eating up a lot of additional acreage. So getting in more into the rural area, that's going to be another challenge that we're going to have.
Is the east side rural area already involved, included in an enterprise zone,
Now, when you say east side rural,
east of the river?
part of it is. Part of it is in there, not all of it. Yeah.
It just sounds like it's a major benefit, particularly to some of our agriculturists, Stewart and Jasper, for example. And it'd
Yeah,
be
it
nice if
would
we
be.
could get them included into it.
Yeah, it would be. Again, the challenge is being able to get to them. There's a requirement that you are not allowed to extend a zone from an existing zone through either industrial, or excuse me, agricultural or residential property to go to another agricultural zone or industrial zone. And that's the challenges that we've had in trying to comply with the state rules and regulations that we have. That's not to say we can't try, and we will. We've tried a couple of others, and we've been successful, but I'm not sure how much more success we have. I think we've run out of some of our credits with the state. But that's not to say that we couldn't try.
And Councilman, I think the first step is getting the zone to Newman.
Right.
And at that point in time, I'm sure Mr. Jasper can speak to his supervisor and see about, okay, now that it's in Newman, you can see it from his property. How can we get it out to his property? Yeah. But the first step would be to get it here, so then he has a case that says, come on, supervisor, the enterprise zone's right there within a stone's throw. Help me get it.
Well, playing the devil's advocate, I would think that the county having the air base as part of their property would want to maintain a lot of that so that they could carry that out there and make that an enterprise zone, make it quite attractive.
That has been discussed. I mean, there's been some informal discussion to that extent. To be very honest with you, we've looked at an effort to hold some of the available land in reserve for uses such as that. But Michael's absolutely right. If we can get the zone into Newman, then it's a matter of extending out to other areas, or at least applying to extend out to other areas. The ideal is to expand where you have contiguous boundaries. When you don't have the contiguous boundaries, you have to go through a non-contiguous process. And we've been a first with the state through this process on about 3 or 4 different projects. And we've hit them with it, and they haven't known how to respond. And the last one was on a non-contiguous. We've been the only one to apply for that zoning designation, and we had to use it in Modesto. And but I think we now know what to do and how to approach it. So again, getting it to within the industrial and commercial areas within the city, then you can come back at a later time and say, all right, now we're looking at an effort to maybe trying to expand this out to include some others like Stewart and Jasper.
Get all the cities involved and possibly down the road going to the state and get more acreage if a guy possibly could.
Well, I don't know if we can or not. They, you know, they're right now that 15%. That's fast and firm. I mean, we had the 67,000, and we had the 10,000 plus, and there's been nothing to indicate. In fact, if anything, the Enterprise Zone program has been on a hit list with a lot of legislators for the last several years. And there's been abuse of the program, misuse of the program, and so every year there's always an effort to try and curtail some of the discussion to come in. And for example, the hiring tax credit is a graduated 5-year credit of 50% the first year, 40, 30, 20, 10. Legislator wants to come back and go 30, 30, 30. And I figured out where the other 10 is going to come from, which really significantly decreases because your biggest benefit will be in the first year of employment. But now there's some that are saying, no, let's reduce that. Part of it has to do with budgetary issues, and with a $10 billion shortfall or more.
It's going to be on the table again this year.
It probably will be, because these are significant benefits. Now, we've issued so far with the zone out of our office, and we do all the vouchering in our office, about 2,800 vouchers so far since the inception of the zone. And you can do some of the math on this, even just the first year, but if you take the first year benefit of roughly $12,000 and you multiply that times 2,800, that's money at the state level. So you're right. I think that the Enterprise Zone program is going to be looked at very, very closely again. And so we've been as squeaky clean as we can be in what we do to make certain that we're not doing anything that they can come back and say, that's why we need to reduce it or get rid of it or do something else. So, you know, that's our position. So we're trying to adhere to everything that we can to make certain that we don't get into a fallback position on it and suffer the consequences. Because in the long run, it's our business community who are the ones that are going to suffer, or at least not be in a position to take advantage of the benefits, and that's what we want to have happen. So that's the program. Michael and I have talked several times. The mayor and I have talked. And you know, I appreciate the opportunity to come out and chat with you about this. You can go in through this. If you have any questions whatsoever, let me know. But I guess I'll campaign a little bit here. I'd certainly encourage you to consider moving forward. Again, we'll work directly with city staff, as we are doing right now with the city of Waterford, to put together the applications and go through our internal process first, and to move this forward so that we can be inclusive and legitimately say that all of our cities within the county have an enterprise zone. And that's really our goal.
Sounds good.
Any questions? More questions?
Doug, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mayor, with the simple majority vote, we'd like direction from the council to direct staff to move forward and start initiating the application process and putting together a proposed boundary that we'd like to bring back to the council and say this is what we believe would be appropriate for an enterprise zone in Newman.
Everybody concur with that? I concur.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
So with that, we'll probably get that together in about 30 to 45 days and have that back to you.
Sounds good.
A lot of benefits.
Item B. Adopt resolution number 2008, next to number, a resolution receiving and accepting the general purpose financial statement for the Newman Redevelopment Agency and Transportation Development Act funds audit for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2007.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, I want to introduce to you Robert Kale, who's going to go over all the financials for you. If you have any questions, and you want to I'll be happy to answer them.
You're going to answer?
No, if
Mayor, council members, Vice President Martini. Like she said, my name is Robert Kale. I'm a senior staff accountant at Clinton and Berg and Company of Modesto, and this is our second year doing the audit.
The mic's off.
Second year doing the audit.
Must be something he's doing back there.
Yeah,
I hear it clicking.
There's a loose wire or something.
It's on the mic.
There you go. It's on now.
Loose wire.
Act one, take two. Like I said, my name is Robert Kale. I work at Clinton and Berg and Company of Modesto. This is our second year doing your audit. We gave you, went through and we did the redevelopment and the city audit together. You received a grade of unqualified, which is the highest in auditing that you can get. We found no major misstatements or problem areas. You have copies of the audit in front of you, and we could just go over just a little bit. We'll start on page 15, which is your overall statement of net assets. In government accounting, you have, basically you have your governmental activities, and then you have your proprietary. Proprietary are your enterprise funds that are run like a business, so your water, sewer funds. Overall, you have total assets of 25,000 or 25,113,000 in the general activities, which is your general fund, all your special revenues, and your capital assets, or capital funds. Proprietary funds, you have 12,432,000, for a total of about 37,000, 37 and a half.
Million.
Yeah, 1,000.
Million, I'm sorry, million.
God, we are.
Yeah,
If it's 1,000, we'll close up shop.
Ted's got the other amount in his pocket right now, but
Yeah.
that's another story.
I think it's the camera that's throwing me.
I don't pay attention to that.
On page 16 and 17, this is a statement of activities. This is required by GASB 34, which you guys are in compliance, and it breaks down your expenses, fees, grants, and all the way through. Governmental activities, expenses, public works, public safety, community development, culture and leisure, and your interest on long-term debts. Then the water services and sewer services down below. This tells you basically your fees that you collected, your expenses, all the way through, and then below it's kind of a reconciliation to get to the total number, which is your property tax, sales tax, motor vehicle, franchise, investments, intergovernmental. This year you have a developer contributions, which is from your developments out there, sewer, water, some of the roads, all that goes on into your fixed assets. Because what happens is you're gonna have to take care of them later on. They break, they turn them on over to you. That's what the developer contributions down below is, okay? We have no prior period adjustment this year, which is good. We had it net last year. Page 18 and 19 are basically your assets, liabilities, and fund balances, your balance sheets for your major funds in the governmental, your general fund, your CDBG funds, which are your loans, housing loans that you give, public facility funds,
redevelopment, storm drains, and then your other funds are all the small little, donations, asset vehicles, and there's a breakdown on page 60 and 61 of all those. Park facility fees, state grants, safety grants, abandoned vehicle, gas tax, local transportation, all your smaller funds. These are on page 18 and 19. Those are your major funds. There's a calculation we have to do. Total assets, total liabilities. They have to be 10% of the overall to be classified as that by Gatsby 34. Most of the other pages that you work through, 21, 22, and 23, are all the reconciliations for the general funds. All your governmental funds, all your reconciliations, the tie back through. Because a lot of your capital assets are not basically on the books. They're in the general fixed asset category. And under Gatsby 34, you have to show them now, and you also have to depreciate them. Before, under the old standards, you did not. Page 24, 25 through 29 is your major funds from your government funds. And basically, this shows your budget to actual revenues. So you have your budgeted amounts and your budgeted expenses and your differences. These are required for your major funds. Starting on page 30 is your proprietary. Those are your water and sewer funds. All these flow together to the front pages up there. But this is all your backup data, your revenues, service charges, operating expenses, non-operating expenses, non-operating revenues and expenses. So like connection fees are not considered operating, it is more non-operating, your connection fees. On page 32 is actually your statement of cash flows for your enterprise funds. Basically, this is actually the cash that goes out, comes in, what you actually spent out the door. Because we're doing full accrual on the other side, which is accounts payable, accounts receivable. This is actually the amount of money that came in and went out, actual cash. So we actually put back in the depreciation because it's actually non-cash expense. So at the end of the year, your cash increased in sewer fund by $739,000, down here at the bottom of page 32. And water is $172,000. That's actual cash increase to your revenue, okay? 34 through, page 34 through about 54, 55 is your notes. These are the notes that back up everything in the spreadsheets for your assets. Basically tells about the city, what is a major fund, cash and investments, where your cash is, how your property tax comes in, capital assets. How do you depreciate them? What life you use? How many years are they actually worth? Okay. On deficits, we had the storm drain fund, deficit of equity, and one of the major reasons on that was part of your portion of the developers' contributions. They came in with a big water, like the big canal out there, and part of it was your cost. So you're paying that back in developer fees. Okay? Cash, where your cash is sitting, cash and investments, held with your bonds, the same thing. Cash on hand, LAIF, you got 14 million in LAIF. Deposits with other financial institutions. And then a breakdown of your accounts receivable, loans receivable, and on the general city, this also includes redevelopment agency, because redevelopment agency is part of the city. Okay, so you'll see some extra stuff in here, which is in the redevelopment too. Transfers, capital assets, additions, subtractions, and then long-term debt, starting on basically page 48. These are your certificates that you guys on your bonds, your housing bonds, business activities, your revenue bonds. Some of them go back to 1978, and what you totally owe on principal and interest. All your long-term debts. Like I said, in the back side, you have all your minor funds that we not consider non-major. And then in the back, we have the audit report on internal controls, which are required by government accounting standards, and a statement on the transportation, general purpose California transportation on page 64. The city redevelopment is a separate financials required by the state. It is also unqualified. We found no major misstatements. On page 7, you'll see actually the statement of net assets or the balance sheet. Your cash with physical agents that are required on a lot of your bonds have to be restricted. Your liabilities, your notes, and then basically the same format all the way through. What we do is we look at housing. Housing requires a 20% of the tax increment that you move over, and you fall into there. We saw no problems. As you look through. And then we also have the notes, which is basically the same breakdown that's in the general financials. If you have any questions?
Questions? Apparently not.
Actually, it was a very good audit. The team members, prior year was a little bit harder, but it's come a long way. I'd like to thank Sonia over here. Her first audit, pulled out a little hair, but she did a fantastic job.
She passed with flying colors then?
Yeah.
Good.
So all the staff that helped us, Mike, good jobs. And we're happy to actually do the audit. I mean, there's some audits that are not enjoyable, and there's other audits that there are, so.
That's good to hear then.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me, and
thank you very much for your report. We appreciate it.
That's great.
Moving on to
Mayor, we do have a
Oh, I'm sorry.
resolutions.
I need a motion then to approve the audits.
I move that we approve the audits.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item C, adopt resolution number 2008, next number, a resolution amending the StanCog Joint Powers Agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to take a shot at this, and then if anyone has any questions, as I believe the president of the StanCog Executive Board, we can answer any. As StanCog was proceeding through with I believe it's the North County Corridor project, there became some right-of-way issues that were not clearly defined within the bylaws of StanCog. At the request of their legal counsel, they adopted and amended the bylaws to clearly define that the use of eminent domain is a power granted to StanCog. As each of its member powers have that authority, it is joint powers laws. It clearly states that StanCog does have that authority for eminent domain, but since it was not clearly defined within the bylaws, their legal counsel is making the recommendation that it does go forward with that. So I know the StanCog Executive Board, Policy Board has already adopted it. Now they're asking all the member cities and to go back to their councils to also adopt it by resolution, and then so that way if StanCog needs to proceed down that route for one of their projects, it's clearly defined within their powers. So this is not a granting StanCog a power that they do not clearly already are authorized to pursue, but it just makes it absolutely clear, and instead of in the gray area, it becomes black and white. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. I know the mayor is here. He sits on the policy board, and he may be able to speak to that as well.
You did a wonderful job of explaining it. That's pretty much it. Something that, working with Caltrans in the state on some of these projects, something they require also to be in the bylaws of StanCog. So, and as you said, it wasn't clearly defined according to legal counsel, so that's why it's going around all the cities to be approved. So, if there's no questions, then we need a motion.
I so move to approve a resolution adopting the amended joint power agreement establishing the Stanislaus County of Governments.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item D, letter of support for county grant application, countywide growth management plan.
Again, I'm going to go ahead and give it an attempt at this, and the mayor, you've been sitting on that group for a while, then you may add a little bit to it. But over the past, I believe it's probably about 2 years, the 9 mayors of the cities within Stanislaus County have been meeting. One of the issues that we understand has repeatedly come up over the time was land use and regionalism or regional planning, if you will. At one point, I know the 9 mayors then invited the Board of Supervisors to join them for a workshop.
Yes.
Out of that workshop came a desire to work collaboratively towards a regional planning for Stanislaus County. When we talk about regional planning, mostly the main issue that most were speaking about was infrastructure, making sure that infrastructure lines up with one another, making sure that it's consistent, and it furthers and enhances the investment that the public is making into infrastructure on a county-wide basis.
And for, as you said, infrastructure, two jurisdictions to work together on infrastructure if possible, which is, we're beginning to have talks with Patterson. So, you work together, and the end is cheaper instead of going on your own and, doing it. That's, the cities on the east side, Modesto, Turlock, Ceres, they all share some sewer facilities already, so that's how it all came about.
And that's a prime example of a project here on the west side. Again, we're starting to talk with the city of Patterson about a regional surface water treatment plant, as well as the city of Gustine. On the east side, it's a little bit different. Modesto's coming up against Riverbank, and Ceres,
they're there.
Yeah, Ceres and Modesto bump up against each other, so that's where a lot of this came to fruition, if you will. So with that, the county is looking to submit a grant application to Caltrans for a county-wide growth management strategy that we can all work towards. The funding that they're looking for is a collaborative effort And the grant application would be a collaborative effort where we get public input and we take workshops and formulate a growth management plan and then take those back to the city. So they're asking the city of Newman for a letter of support, of which I've attached to your staff report. So with that, I can, if I have not been clear, I can answer any questions that you may have.
You did a fine job on that one, too.
Will it cost us anything, Mike?
At this point in time, it would not. At a later point in time, if the county came back and asked us to participate in the funding, I would bring that back separately to you. Under your letter of support, it is a no-cost measure.
Further questions? If not, a motion then?
I'd move to approve the letter of support for county grant application, countywide growth management plan.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item E, report on relocation of water line for underground utility district number 5.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. This item has to do with our Rule 20 undergrounding project, and mostly it has to do with that portion of commonly known as the plaza area or our downtown city parking lot. By December 1, 2008, all the overhead wires, associated overhead structures that supply electric, communication, similar associated service have to be removed. And in order to meet this schedule, the utility companies need to begin their undergrounding work by July 1 of 2008. According to PG&E and AT&T, there needs to be a minimum horizontal clearance of a distance of 5 feet between their utilities and what they consider wet utilities, which is our water and sewer. After reviewing the alley improvements, it was determined based on that present utility layout that there was insufficient space for the undergrounding. So to create an undergrounding corridor of that sufficient width, we had to look at 3 options. We either had to get additional right-of-way to acquire, we needed to get the sanitary sewer line relocated, or we needed to relocate the water line. Of the 3 options, relocating the water line is determined to be the best and to have the smallest physical impact on the city. Relocation work needs to be scheduled to begin by around the end of March of this year. The engineer's estimate for fiscal impact is about $100,000. So, with the council's permission, what we would like to do is move ahead with preparation for construction plans and bid documents. So, any questions?
Ernie, I assume now the water line runs down the alley,
Yes.
and we're talking about only that one block where the plaza is going to be?
For this project, yes. Eventually, what the city engineer has determined is that we're gonna have to relocate all the water lines and all the alleys when we continue with our undergrounding work.
So it costs $100,000 per block to relocate the water lines?
That's his estimate, yes. I believe that it's a little high, but there's plenty of money in there to get the job done.
And how many blocks are we looking at in the future of relocating the power lines?
We're looking at 6 more blocks because the district runs between Main Street and Highway 33 from Mariposa down to Merced. And then on the other block between P and Main Street, it's from Kern to Merced. So we have 3 blocks, and then we're going to have the remaining 3 blocks after we do this project.
So a total of 7.
Yes.
But this is the main one, right?
This is
Right now.
This is the major one. This is the one that sits adjacent to the plaza that we're planning on moving forward with, so.
And we need to get this work done because we've also have our monies that are, I believe, are going before the policy board. Is that correct, Mayor? On, for our plaza project?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this work needs to get done before we can get started with our project.
Mm-hmm.
And the funds he's referring to is through StanCog, the city of Newman, I believe $516,000 federal T grant that would go towards infrastructure improvements in the downtown plaza.
So this would be part of that?
We don't have this as part of that. There's other infrastructure projects that need to be done. So whether this is part of it or not, it's going to exceed the $600,000. It's going to be at least $600,000 of improvements.
From us.
Well, 516 from the federal government and 100,000 from us.
And Ernie, all the issues with PG&E been worked out. There was, if I recall, there was an issue with PG&E.
They were slow.
They were either, well, slow or didn't have it scheduled.
Yeah, they didn't have it scheduled, but what we did is AT&T needed a trenching plan from PG&E so that they could plan their project. And PG&E was saying that they didn't have any money to do this. So what we ended up doing is we called an on-site meeting and we had all the utilities send representatives there. In this way, they could get a layout and PG&E showed up with an estimator. And then they all pretty much had a consensus as to, okay, this is the best place to do our trenching for our services. And so based on that, they all went back and started working on their plan, so this was able to move forward.
So we're all on the same page now?
Yeah, so we're all on the same page, so we hurdled that obstacle.
Good.
And if you recall your past latest resolution with respect to the underground district, they will begin undergrounding July 1st of 2008 and will pull out all poles, I believe, December 31st of 2008, correct, Ernie?
That's correct.
So by the end of this calendar year, all poles and overhead utilities in that area should be removed.
Good.
At least we're in the same year that they say they're going to do it finally.
The work's not done yet, man.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
Further questions for Ernie?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ernie.
Mayor, because this is a budget augmentation,
Yeah, we need a,
I'd like to get a motion and
Okay.
an approval.
do we,
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the $100,000.
I second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Keep on it, Ernie. Keep the pressure on to keep it going so we can be done this time next year. Right? Item F, report from Supervisor DeMartini.
Good evening, Mayor Panazia, council members. Just a couple of things tonight. One of the things that I was going to talk to you tonight was about the grant from Caltrans, that I saw that was on your agenda yesterday. That grant for $250,000, at least the application for it, did pass the board today. So your letter of support is pretty well timed. It passed on a 4-to-1 vote with Supervisor Monteith dissenting because he didn't like the regional planning. But, the rest of us disagreed that we think that the mayors and the supervisors need to continue to have the talks that we've had for the last couple of years. They've temporarily stopped because we didn't have any funding anymore. And the $250,000, I think, is probably far over what's going to be needed, but we really don't know. The purpose of this is to have regional cooperation and planning for infrastructure. We've had some very productive talks in the past, and we were just making some progress, and then of the 9 cities, 5 mayors changed, and which is very unusual. Most of them, only one was defeated, the rest didn't run for re-election. So there was a little bit of a learning curve to get the other mayors up to speed, and then we ran out of money. So we're ready to start up again. We do have this grant, and the match for it, because somebody did ask what the cost would be. Caltrans requires a 20% match, which is $50,000. I think what the county would probably be looking for would be half of that, $25,000 divided between the 9 cities. And the county would pick up the other $25,000. That's assuming that we do get the money. If we don't get that, there is opportunities for other funding too. And most of this would be for facilitators, staff time. But I think it's very productive and to work together, because the county is considered a suburban county now. It's not a rural county. And we do have things that we need to talk about, like water systems and highways and sewer systems, in the ways that we can work together as a whole county. So we have planning from one end to the county that's consistent and makes some sense. Besides, the dialogue between cities and counties is more important now than what's ever has been. So anyway, that did pass the board, so we thank you for your letter of support, and we hope we can get back on track with these meetings soon. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I mentioned it a few meetings back, was the EDAC meetings, the Economic Development Action Committee, which has been revived at the county. And with this, it accesses grants from the Federal Economic Development Corporation. And there is money available for projects. Our next meeting will be on January 31st. And a few meetings back, I don't remember when it was, I did deliver to your city manager an outline and actually of what Kings County has done. And that's the model that we're using, because it was simple. It's been approved by the federal government, and it's not rocket science. It will be a book with demographics of the county, each city, and then a list of projects. So we were asking each city by January 31st to using the model of Kings County, is to come up with some basic demographics of your city and a project that you would like to see built, or planning for a project. There's 3 types of grants that are available. One of them is grants for planning. So if you're planning, some, say an industrial park or something, and you need engineering, there's grants available for that. There are, in the second part of it, is money available for the actual project itself. And these are grants, these aren't loans. These are grants, and they can go up to about $3 million. And then the third one is the one that we don't want, and that is grants for natural disasters like floods, hurricanes, and earthquakes or something like that. That one we don't want to have to apply for. So those are the 3 parts of it. Just like your enterprise zone, which was explained to you by the Alliance, can be a useful economic tool, EDAC, the Economic Development Corporation, can also be good for economic development for the city and the county. The purpose of it is to stimulate economic growth and to build public and private partnerships. So I would hope that maybe you could continue and direct your staff to try to come up with something for the meeting on the 31st, even if it's a draft, but it's not that hard to do. So you need to identify a project or a project that you need some money for planning. And then we will put this together and then submit it to the federal government. So anyway, I guess I urge you to kind of try and get that done in the next 3.5 weeks.
Jim, I'm wondering, Mike, would that be Aquatic Center?
The Downtown Plaza is a good project, as the Downtown Plaza directly links a highway to our downtown, thereby attracting visitors off of the highway into our downtown as an economic development engine. But we will be bringing projects back before you at your next meeting so you can help make that final determination.
Good. The Aquatic Center, it has to create jobs and economic growth. They're particularly looking for jobs. And this county qualifies, just like we qualified for the enterprise zone, because our income levels are lower than the state average and the unemployment rate is higher than the state average. And that qualifies us for a fair amount of money. There's no cap on this, so theoretically, I mean, each year, every city could get $3 million in these grants. I don't think that's really counted, but it is available. And they told us that the federal government has that funded, and they are just looking for applications that will improve economic development or create jobs. The creating jobs is the key thing that we'll get to. I'm sorry, the Aquatic Center is a great city. We have to use a different pot of money of that, and there's a pots of money out there. So, but anyway, I would try to urge you to please try and get something together. Our county staff, a person that's working on that is Nancy Brown, and she will be calling the city probably this week. I had a meeting with her today, and I asked her to call each city to see if we have this on track, so we could try to get something by the 31st. Thank you.
Jim, one additional question. On the Caltrans funds, the $50,000 matching funds that we need to come up with, you said half would be the counties, half would be the cities, $25,000 from the cities. How do you propose to divide that up? Divide it by 9 each city, population on the tax base?
Population, that's what we use.
Population.
I believe it was
Population.
Yeah. We have 1.6% of the population when it comes out to about $310.
Ted has that. Ted has that in his pocket right now, right, Ted?
Rough estimate.
What's fair is fair.
Yeah.
Wow. Just like the animal shelter, Newman is small enough where we've got them real small.
Another $300 will go over that, right?
It might be slightly more than that, but it would be worth the investment.
We'll pay our fair share.
I think when you're talking about 1.5% of the money, it's reasonable for the economic benefit.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Item 11, items from the city manager and staff.
Bob has informed us that mic's not working.
No kidding.
Well, we happen to know there's 3 mics over here that do work.
With that, I'd like to bring it to the council's attention. The 18th of January is...
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, the 21st.
21st.
21st of January is a holiday, so our scheduled 2-on-2 meeting, we'd like to move that to the 28th. Is there any conflicts for the members? So the 2-on-2 with the school board would be the 28th.
28th?
Yeah, we'll send you out an email as a reminder if you'd like.
Did you get a date for that Patterson 2-on-2 yet, Mike?
No, that was
Speaking
the
of
other thing. We
2-on-2s?
wanted Mondays and Thursdays is what I've sent them.
Okay, you haven't heard back.
Yeah, they haven't gotten back to us. He's supposed to check with his council member, so.
Okay.
Right now, I think we're shooting for the 24th or the 21st. I mean, we could wrap the school board up by 5:30 and then start that one at 6. So, that's Councilmember Crinclaw and Mayor Pentazzi on that one. So I'll get back to you on those dates. We, as you noticed, and I'm sure you received our Proposition 218 letters went out with the protest vote. Most of the calls that we're getting right now, and it wasn't clearly identified in there, and this will be a separate action by the council, and we'll fully, it'll be staff's recommendation that we continue our low-income program for people that can demonstrate that they meet the low-income criteria as set up by PG&E. They're entitled to the 20% reduction in price. So I just want to make sure that people understand that that will be part of our proposal to the council when we come back to that. So we have openings on our recreation, architectural review, and planning commission. At point in time. Membership or applications can be obtained at City Hall for anyone wanting to serve. Those applications are due by January 16th, 2008.
How many seats, Mike?
Do you recall?
Two in
We
each
have,
one.
we have approximately 2 on each one, I believe.
Has there any been any response from the paper, from the ad in the paper?
We've ran it twice. But
No,
we have not
their
gotten-
response?
We haven't received any inquiries at this point in time.
We've had 3 incumbents reapply.
But I mean, no new people from, like, read it in the paper, want to get, no.
It just ran last week.
Yeah. Okay.
We received our response from PERS with the council's request to extend the leave of Chief Ulibarri, and they did extend that leave till April 30th of 2008. With that, we are again continuing our advertisement. The final closing date for the chief's application is January 25th. While we have not yet received any formal applications, the applicants that are calling us are captains within large organizations, sheriffs, people that are starting to retire. That was something that we looked at when we set this third period, open enrollment period or open recruitment period, because we knew people tend to retire towards the end of the year. So we'll see how that goes. And again, January 25th is the last filing date, so we'll keep you informed on that. Again, I wanted to personally welcome Bobby Alcantar to our Newman Police Department. You know, we have been full staff since about October. An opening did open up on our staff, and within 3 hours, Officer Alcantar had accepted that position. So he came through right away. He had already demonstrated and shown that he wants to be a Newman police officer. We also have additional persons that want to be officers. Our community service officer, Edgar Lopez, would like to convert to a police officer at some time in the future, so we're looking at accommodating him into the future as well. Lastly, on February 5th, this preliminary date, Stanislaus County will be hosting a community-wide meeting here in Newman to discuss potential land uses at Crow's Landing Air Base. At this point in time, we are anticipating that meeting will be held at the Louis J. Newman building. But as we solidify that date and time, we will come back to the council and let them know. We will also make sure that there is an advertisement in the local newspaper, letting the community know that they're welcome to attend that. And that will be a Stanislaus County event. That won't be a city event, but there will be city staff, and I encourage city residents to attend. So.
Michael, what does the county want to find out?
What they want to do is the county is developing a range of land uses that are appropriate, that they believe are appropriate out at Crow's Landing Air Base. They want to run that list of land uses by the communities of Newman and Patterson, and they get the residents' input into those land uses before they do any kind of formal development agreement with the developer.
Seems like it's after the fact.
Well, since they haven't come in with the formal agreement, they can put those land uses in as they develop it, and that's what they've shared with us.
Since they haven't listened to anything the steering committee has told them, why are they taking the bother to do it now?
Don't have
I realize
response.
that's a difficult
No
question.
comment,
Thank you.
Good point.
Mayor, that's all that I had for this evening.
Michael, how's the talks going with SCM Homes?
The talks are going very well. In fact, we will be, I believe tomorrow we will reach a final agreement on all the terms. Then we only need to get the attorneys to write it up, and we believe we're still on schedule to get it here to you the 22nd.
Okay, our next meeting?
Yes.
I'm looking at that, it says December, no wonder.
Yeah,
Can we get it in
that's the wrong
calendar?
way. We're working on getting that one. We have the new ones here. So yeah, the 22nd, we're looking at having that new meeting. The terms are very amicable with the city. In fact, we even got them to agree to pay all of our attorney's costs.
Hey, that's great.
That's a plus.
Yeah.
That's good.
Not bad.
And it's,
Okay.
people laughed at me when I threw that in there, but it's stuck on the wall. I'm happy.
We're not laughing. We're smiling.
Sounds good.
Good job.
Any other staff reports this evening? Everybody sleeping or?
great, jump right up.
It's bound to be riveting, I'm sure.
Is it live?
It's live.
Okay, members, mayor, members of the city council.
I think you lost it again, but we gotta fix it.
Okay.
You're good. It's on.
I'll try that.
It's on.
That works. Okay. Several items I'd like to bring your attention to. First of all, Thursday, January 17th is what we're calling the first annual lunch with the chief for the seniors. It's going to be at the West Side Theater, and this is an opportunity for city staff to get together with the seniors, talk about how to access city governmental services. Talk about accessing police department, emergency, non-emergency, office hours, when you call the dispatch center, how that works, fire department, public works, city hall, with water, sewer, garbage, so on and so forth. And the whole thing is to let the seniors know how to access governmental services. In addition to that, we're coming up with refrigerator magnets, frequently called important phone numbers for seniors to know. So we're going to put it in large print too, so I can read it. And again, this is all being paid for with the generous donation of the film crew that came in for the Quaker Oats commercial. So it's going to cover the cost of the lunch. It's also going to cover the cost of the magnet. And we received a few donations to make all this work. So hopefully it's going to be a very successful event. Flyers are going up. I'll be talking with Mike about getting it on our website also, so we can get the word out there as much as possible. So that's next Thursday at 11:30 at the theater. A couple of things I'd like to bring your attention to. Number one, last couple of weeks, all officers attended a 12-hour course on first responder to hazardous material spills and situations. Definitely an officer safety issue. How to properly respond, stage, get additional resources on scene, and not get involved in the situation and becoming a casualty of the situation. So it was very important training for them. For some officers, it was a refresher. For other officers, it was brand new training. I have 2 officers scheduled to attend the 32-hour child restraint systems training that's going to be put on by Modesto. This is, again, continuing training, and it's a service I want to be able to provide to the community, where people can come to the police department and ask, is my child safety restraints properly installed? Because it is very confusing, and it is a citable offense if it's not properly installed. But it's a service I want to be able to provide for our community. So that's going to be in April. We have Officer Joaquin Flores and Edgar Lopez, our code enforcement officer, will be attending that training. Tomorrow and the day after, Sergeant Richardson and Officer Chad Earl will be attending a 2-day grant writing class that's being offered in Modesto. So we're training up our personnel to be proficient in grant writing and again go after grants. Speaking of grants, I just submitted the 3 bids for the Homeland Security grant for ballistic helmets and ballistic shields. I mentioned this, I believe, at the last meeting. The 3 bids will allow us to purchase 12 ballistic helmets. That'd be enough to issue 1 to each officer, and also have 2 ballistic shields. And again, the idea is to create a high-risk entry team when we go after subjects who are known to be armed or dangerous and so on and so forth. So we're taking the Newman Police Department to the next level. This is the open filing period. Again, on grants, this is an open filing period for the Office of Traffic Safety on traffic grants, and it closes on January 31st. The city manager and I will be taking a look at opportunities for grants in that arena. And the last thing I'd like to bring to attention is, at the last meeting we had a speaker talk about what they felt was lack of police service in their neighborhood. And I did look into that on several fronts. As a matter of fact, I talked with the lady at the meeting. I talked to her a couple of times on the phone afterwards. This last week I had a sit-down discussion with her husband. In the meantime, I had gone out to the neighborhood and wrote down every address in their block, or in their court, I should say. And then I came back to the station and ran a check on all reports that were generated in their neighborhood. And then I got a hold of the dispatch center for all calls for service within their neighborhood for the last year. They give me an idea of what was being reported. And actually very few crimes were being reported. The speaker had an issue that the police department didn't respond on that one call. I did check that out and even spoke with her husband about that. He had waited 15, 20 minutes prior to making the call to us. The call was in the queue for about 10 minutes before an officer was available. Once the call was dispatched, we were on scene within 4 minutes, so we did respond to the call. However, during that time span, the activity that was being reported was no longer occurring. And the gentleman had gone inside the house and was unaware that we even responded. So it was an erroneous information that was reported that evening. So we did respond to that call. My only comment is to all citizens, if they have any issues going on in their neighborhood, just please give me a call, make me aware of it, let me look into it. The essence of problem solving is working with the community to identify problems and to resolve those problems. So I'm very approachable, I'm very reachable. Just give me a call and I'll make myself available for any kind of a sit-down discussion. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Chief. I'm glad you took the time, and as I spoke with her at the meeting that night, I encouraged her to meet with you, and I knew you'd take care of that, so thanks very much.
Yes, thank you.
Questions? Chief, I had a question. I know there's a lot of activity in the neighborhoods. Neighborhood watch used to be pretty big, and I don't know if it's something that even a lot of neighborhoods are aware of. And I think this would really help our police department if we get more of our citizens, becoming more aware of what's going on in their neighborhood. And when there is a problem, to call the police department.
You're right. We are ripe for a neighborhood watch program. And I believe there may have been such a program previously, but I think it's kind of been placed on the back burner. I don't see much activity going on with that. And I'd be more than happy to resurrect that and put some energy into that program. As a matter of fact, at the end of this month, staffing being what it is, I'll have one officer coming off of training, which is going to allow me to appoint my detective position, which I've had to hold in abeyance until we have proper staffing. And this is one of the things my detective is going to be working with. Not only solving crimes, but working with the neighbors in neighborhood watch programs.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
And also, I've been approached by Crime Stoppers of Stanislaus County, and we're going to become partners in that venture again when the detective comes on board. And there was a meeting today that I couldn't attend. Actually, it's tomorrow, but they'll have another one in February, and that's the first meeting we'll be jumping into.
Chief, anything on those burglaries? Any update on that?
Sure. Let me give a briefing, if you will.
Yeah, please.
Over the holiday season, we had a rash of burglaries. And as a result of that, we had a special team out doing drunk driving enforcement on Christmas Eve. We quickly changed that into a burglary suppression unit. They left their drunk driving assignment just to work the burglaries. Subsequent to that, I brought in officers on overtime to continue working burglary suppression. They were given the 3 A's. I wanted them to be assertive, I wanted them to be aggressive, and I wanted to see arrest. And that was their marching orders. And if it was moving, they were stopping it. So we also did that. We made contacts with members of the Sheriff's Department ID Tech Unit who are now taking our fingerprints and processing those prints through their ID, through Stan County first for comparison, and then into Cal ID. Heretofore, it took a year for those prints to get into the system because we were trying to work with the state. And the last meeting I talked about a burglary at a local school. Those prints took almost a year to get into the system. The Sheriff's Department is working with us and we're getting those into the system within 2 to 3 days. They're also doing our fingerprint comparisons. On large burglaries, they have offered their services to come out and process those crime scenes for us to free up the officer to get back on patrol, so the officer doesn't stay there to work those crime scenes. So we're getting great assistance from the Sheriff's Department. I briefed the city manager today on our proactive law enforcement efforts that we're going to be instituting within the next couple of days in that regard. I'll be happy to talk to each member individually, let you know what it is we're going to do, but we're not sitting on our hands. We're taking a very proactive stance on this issue, and we're moving forward with it. So.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Other staff reports?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Bob, I know you're disappointed that soccer's over, but basketball season does start this Saturday.
But
so
now you
something
could
to
use it
look
for a
forward
swimming pool out there.
to. Probably. Youth basketball starts Saturday, adults begin on Sunday. Santa visited the teen center this last week, and he brought us an arcade quality air hockey table and arcade quality foosball table. And Santa's little elves, known as Eric Torres and Frank Heiberger, spent 4 hours today putting those together. And that's about all. And hope to see you all on the 18th at the party.
What time?
6 p.m. cocktails, 7 o'clock dinner.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With this stormy weather we're having, I thought you might want to hear about how we fared with the storm over the weekend. We got a little over 2.5 inches of rain. We had some local street flooding in some areas, but there was no street closures. We had a few clogged drains because of leaves and debris. We had a Christmas tree and a soccer ball that clogged a couple of pipes, and that water backed up quick. But we had our crews out there cleaning out the grates regularly. We had a couple of pumps that failed on us over at the basin at Janet Carlson Park, but those are interconnected with the Creek Canyon subdivision, so eventually all of that was pumped out. By Saturday morning, everything was pretty much drained out. We lost a tree over at Terry Heiberger's place by the youth center. Had a few.
Seen that?
A tree?
A tree in the
yeah.
little park right there went down.
Quick, Ted, go get it.
Ted, you want it? We can transfer it.
What they're going to plant it, they already did.
We had a few broken limbs, not too many of those. Lance reported a peak flow of 2.5 million gallons per day. We had a few pipelines between the basins back up on him, but again, by Saturday, everything was back to normal. Only used about 6 sandbags in an alley where some of the water was running into some property owner's garage. But other than that, everything went pretty well. And I saw Councilman Kelly and his friend were out there also assisting with the flooding, so. Any questions?
Yeah, I just had one.
Yes.
Sherman Parkway,
Mhm.
the water that comes through there and then comes
Right.
down to I guess it'd be the east end, and then it's pumped into, I guess, the holding pond. It seemed like there was a lot of water there, and it was just, if there had been any more water coming in the system, that it probably couldn't have handled it. Is it just metering that real slow, or was it plugged up, or was it restricted or something like that?
No, it's we have two pumps that will pump the water through a 6-inch force main to force it on down to Inyo and Canal School Road.
Okay.
And so what happens is that pipe, once it surcharges, it has those overflows, so it bubbles up into the basin.
Okay.
And as soon as the pumps catch up to it, it all drains and away it goes. And it's designed that way, and it's supposed to vacate and clean out, pump out that basin within 36 hours. And it did it in 24, so it's doing good.
Thank you, Randy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ernie. No other staff reports? Okay.
She's asleep back there.
Yeah, she gave the big one today.
Yeah, you are.
She concurred with the big one, so that's
She did.
good. All right, items from city council members. Ed?
Just a couple of things. Saturday night, Sergeant Richardson had come by my home because he was concerned with the rains, and it rained pretty hard. He knew that I was intimately familiar with the flooding of 95 and 97. As a former mayor, Severa and I spent quite a bit of time studying how the flows of water and how we flooded. So I went out with Randy and showed him the markers at Orstema Creek, what to look for. And one of the issues, I think we all know, and I'm not sure if it was last year, John, year before last, that you had made arrangements to have the...
To clean that debris?
Yeah, so I went out and I
That was
showed him...
like 2 years ago we cleaned it, yeah.
Well, there was a lot of debris. And it had quite a ways to go before it was going to overflow, but I explained to him it takes about 12 hours for the water from the hills to reach down to the creek at the trestle, and then if it overflows there, it takes about 8 hours to hit town. So he was concerned, so I showed him all the hot spots. But it would probably be wise for us if we could somehow make arrangements to get that trestle cleared, because it was starting to back up. And at the highest point, I kept checking the website. At the highest point, I think it was like 3.72 feet, which is not dangerous at that point in time. It gets about 7 to 8 feet, then we got problems. But it was backing up. And after the downpour we had Saturday night, I checked the website before I went to bed, and it had rose almost a foot. So, but if we could possibly, I'm not sure what we did last time.
We actually just did it ourselves, but I'm on it. I've actually talked to a couple of the county people already, and trying to get a hold of the railroad to participate this time in cleaning.
I would say if we could just do it ourselves, let's just do it. Let's not wait for somebody to do it for us. I mean, we were in no threat at all this last downpour, but had we had steady rain and more brush had come down creek and it got caught at trestle, we could have had some issues. So
I know last time was kind of an emergency deal. We had it clean, and the person that cleaned it, he did the best he could, but we actually need something with a better reach with almost a claw on it. So that's what we're trying to
find 4 of the 6
that.
trestles were completely blocked.
Yeah, 3/4 block.
Yeah, and I had been going out and driving the streets and just checking on things, going out to the creek and looked at the measurements. And so when Randy came by, we went out and I showed him where all those measurements were and what to look for and those kinds of things.
The stuff that they did clear out is laying on the bank on the side.
Is it?
So if it does come back up, it's going to float right back.
Right back in, yeah. So it needs to be lifted out. So, if we could just take the lead, just preventive maintenance might be wise. So, let's see. We all had received a copy of a letter from Mr. Swift down in Patterson. I'm not sure if anybody else contacted him, but I did, regarding the Stancog issue. And I know that the mayor voted as the direction of the council at that last meeting. So when I called him on it, and he called me back and confirmed that the letter was actually an error. The letter should have never gone out. So yeah, it didn't. And so I got that squared away with him. And let's see. And just one last thing, I'd just like to thank staff for the flowers, the recent death of my mother. I appreciate that. And also the flowers that were sent to my wife after recent surgery. So I appreciate that very much. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you, Ed. Ted?
Just a couple quickies. My congratulations to the audit. Excellent job. Excellent job. It was so easy to read. And I almost understood it. But Ernie, thank you for coming by too. When we had my street was definitely underwater. And I knew I was in trouble when Ernie came by in a boat. But
it's a city cabin cruiser we had.
He was right on it, yeah. He's looking at my tree too, by the way. The only other thing, I have one, it's a home. Ernie, you know where that they were talking about doing a dog park right there?
Yes.
Yeah, the fence, did you see that? That thing's been there for a long time. I'm wondering what we need to do a fence is down
Yeah,
on
it's a
that, the
property
house is
owner's
abandoned.
fence that fell over, it's a wooden fence for that first
Which one?
property.
The three basin,
Yeah.
three lot
Yeah.
basin?
Yeah.
I have the address here, Michael, and it's on Canyon Brook. That thing's been bugging me. I finally wrote down the address, but that's an eyesore, to be honest. And I don't know if we're at any liability if people go into that area. I am assuming that we own it.
Let me check into it. I'll
I'll give
update you on
an
our
address
weeklies.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and I was gonna kid the chief, but it seems every time we have a meeting, there's another, officer, and I'm just thinking, I think I've counted 50 now. Are we up to
50? Just trying to get them by you.
Good job, good job. Keep it up, keep it up.
That's it. Thanks, Ted. Bob?
Well, just to repeat what Ted said, the audit was something that I feel real good about, the fact that financially the city is very healthy, and that makes me sleep better at nights. But I'd like to thank everyone that's been involved with that budget, because everyone's done an excellent job. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Mike?
I've got a couple of congratulations tonight. One to go to our chief of police. I see the radar wagon back up and working. Thank you for resurrecting that. I think it's going to be an asset to help control the speed in the city. And the second one's to the Supervisor DeMartini, who's here. Very nice job on the safety barriers on Easton Road and Jorgensen Road and Bell Road. They functioned very well.
I went out Sunday and looked at them, and they
Quite-
work just like they're supposed to.
Quite an asset, long needed, so thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Mike, and I think that's all I had. Just remind everybody about the city employee dinner coming up. Make sure you get your reservation in, and with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.